georeferencing in QGIS. So you'll want to use this approach for some of the earthquakes where we say there's good or pre-earthquake imagery in Google Earth. For example, the Baluchistan earthquake in Pakistan. These are typically going to be more recent earthquakes. So here you can see Google Earth. And so don't try to do this as I'm doing it, but you can try, for example, later today to make sure that you understand. So you can open Google Earth. We can see here, and we're going to go down to Tempe and take an image from Google Earth and Tempe and then work on georeferencing it in QGIS. So you'll want to go up here to this clock button, and that will then open up this toolbar where you can see the set of imagery that's available from different time periods in Tempe. And so this is the 2020 imagery, and we can now shift this going back in time with our time machine to now looking at Tempe in December 2007. And again, it's an urban area, so there's lots of high resolution, good quality imagery, but in some of these more rural areas, you'll probably have to look more for good imagery. But you can see, looking at the screen, I would flip back and forth, that Tempe looks different 50 years ago. Again, showing that we're looking at images acquired at different times. This is ASU's campus. And then to save it, you want to go to File, Save, and then Save Image. And that opens up this set of tools here. And then the important thing is where you can set the resolution. So I'd already used this, so the default was to save it at the maximum resolution. But when you're doing this yourself for the first time, the default will be one of the more medium resolution settings. But it's very important that you come and you save it at the maximum resolution. And you click Save Image. You pick where to save it. Once you say what you want, it'll take a couple minutes or a minute to save it. And then look at it, it's on your computer. It doesn't have a georeference. It's not georeferenced, it's a JPEG, but you can still interact with the image, zoom in and out, see what it looks like. So next, we'll look at it in QGIS. So you're all hopefully quite familiar with QGIS. So we'll be georeferencing it to the Google Earth imagery base map. So here's Google Earth. You can go look in Arizona. There's Phoenix. And then now I will add the it's Tempe 2007. So here's the metadata. See it's RGB. If you click to source, you'll see that there's no georeferencing information. So you can click zoom to layer. And as we discussed earlier, now it looks like we're not in Tempe anymore, but in fact, we're actually off the coast of Africa. And that's 0 latitude and 0 longitude, which is why it puts it there. So sometimes when I georeference imagery, I like to make a shapefile just in the area close to where the imagery is, so I can flip back and forth very quickly. I don't actually end up using it here, but it can be a good thing to make so that you're not continuously flipping back between the Atlantic Ocean and Arizona. So it doesn't really matter, for example, where you put your shapefile. But again, it can be a helpful feature to have. So then now I'm going to open the georeferencing plugin. And to do that, you want to go to plugins, first window, and then type in georef. And then you'll actually see here, so here's the plugin that you'll want to use. But it turns out it's actually a core plugin. So you can't uninstall it. You don't need to install it. So we've actually just confirmed that it's already installed as a default part of QGIS. So to then open up the georeferencing tool, you'll want to go to raster and then this georeferencing. So here's the georeferencing window, and you'll want to open up a raster. You can see here, I played with it a few times. First few times I didn't like how I did it. So when you're first using this tool or maybe working on a new data set, it might take you 1 or 2 times to get it to be how you like. So don't hesitate to basically restart and make progress. So here's our data set in Tempe, not yet georeferenced. So now I'm going to pick some control points. So the idea of these points is I click somewhere in this non-georeferenced image here, and then I'll click that same area on the map. So you can start it. So I think I pick about 5 or 6 points. And so I clicked the southwestern part of this intersection. So then I want to go into the georeferenced Google Earth map and pick the same point. And then for each ground control point, then you get another row in this table that has the information about the control point that was picked. Sometimes this table isn't clear, so then you'll want to go to View, Panels, or it's not visible. So yeah, you'll want to go to View, Panels, and then click a GCP table, and then it will appear. So then you can keep on picking points. So for an area like this, you'll probably want to have at least 5 points. And it's very important that they're not collinear. If they're collinear, you'll be very well georeferenced in one direction, but then not well georeferenced in the perpendicular direction. That's particularly important if your data were originally in a different coordinate system, or were, say, taken by an airplane. So you may have some skewing of the picture. So here I'm just picking points. Sometimes you make a point in the first picture and then you forget where it was later. And in that case, it's easiest just to say cancel and start again. For example, if you forget which side of an intersection you click on. In Tempe, it's relatively easy because there's all these sharp intersections. If you're looking at a more natural environment, it can be harder, but you might, for example, want to find rivers, intersections of streams, few desert dirt roads, but also be careful that some features may change over time. You don't want to use those as your control points. So here is an example where we find this ASU symbol. I'm going to click the A and then go and look. And now we don't see that feature here in the 2020 imagery. So this represents some part of the landscape that's changed. So I'm just going to cancel and not make that into a control point that I use. So now I have 6 good control points here. Now I'm going to go and click one, and on purpose, I'm going to do it incorrectly. So I picked that, so I picked the northwest side of the intersection, and then I'm going to come and pick the other side of the intersection. And so the key is to go up to this transformation settings. I'll get to the badly picked point in a second. And it gives you these different options of how you want to align the image that you're georeferencing with the Google Map, Google Earth base map imagery. And so you get these different options here: linear, different degrees of polynomials, thin plate spline. Typically, I would use a first or second order degree polynomial, and essentially each higher order polynomial adds additional terms for how you're going to align the imagery. So if you do a first order polynomial, you can do stretching of the image, for example, with an X term or a Y term. If you do a second order polynomial, you can then do some internal warping of the image. Another thing you'll want to make sure is that you're referencing to the coordinate system, either to your project coordinate system or to the coordinate system of the Google Earth imagery. Sometimes if this is not at the correct setting, when you finish, you'll find that you actually don't see your image there. And so then you'll probably need to go back and edit what this target coordinate reference system is. Essentially, if it's wrong, it just doesn't know where to put it, so it'll make it blank. I'm going to stop and leave it as a first order degree polynomial. This is a good one to start with because it's very basic, so it won't do any overfitting of your alignment, so you can see how well your ground control points were picked. Okay, so now when we took off the, I think it was thin spline before, to now first order degree polynomial, we see that we got these big red lines. And these big red lines indicate the difference between the fit that it is able to come up with using whatever transformation I set and the ground control points that I used. And or the picking that I generated. And so because one of the points that I picked we knew was bad, we get these very long lines that show that that QGIS is not able to well align the or this image with the base map. So we don't want these long, essentially errors. So I can turn off this final ground control point, which we knew was wrong. And you see that the, I'll turn it back on. But you can see that the arrows or the error bars get much smaller. And this one here is still long because this is the one that I picked incorrectly, but it's a little bit grayed out. So that's showing that it's not one that we're using for the alignment. So then come back up to transformation settings at the end. If you prefer a second degree polynomial, that's fine. And it may be a better fit for the data, particularly if you're looking at airborne imagery. So to do the final georeferencing, you click this green play button, and then it does the georeferencing. And then you close the georeferencing window, and then you can see that georeferencing did a reasonably good job of placing our Google Earth imagery on the base map.
I'll just add that, you know, one of the reasons I think why we want you guys to learn this is so that you have the full experience of doing this work, which includes preparing the base data, but being good at georeferencing is a super good, useful skill. I feel like I'm always doing a quick georeference to make a map and go forward. And it's really powerful because it lets us bring all kinds of imagery into the GIS environment and get it in the right place. So, you know, there's that extra motivation beyond just the project itself that you become proficient in QGIS with a lot of the capability, which is at least the georeferencing as well as the mapping.
So that was a quick overview. Does anyone have questions from watching that?
Nope.
So I suggest that so they'll put this video on YouTube and feel free to watch it. It'll probably take you a few times to get it to work correctly. So don't let that scare you away. It'll be worth the effort that you put in. As Ramon was saying, learning how to georeference imagery is a skill that will probably serve you far beyond this class. And if you have any questions,
Just add one comment. I'll just add one comment to that. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's been some questions about GIS and frustrations during some of the homeworks, and you know, the technologies are always changing, and all of us are always having to adapt and learn the next thing. So, yeah, as Chelsea said, any effort you put in now, you know, is going to help you down the line to stay on top of these things.
so yeah, feel free to try this out. If you try it today and if you have questions, please come to office hours or you can email also. And again, like for many QGIS questions, searching online is a good way to get different answers, see how people solve problems. And you'll also see that if you have an issue, you're probably not the first person to have that problem. And a nice thing about QGIS is that people people ask questions on different boards online, and then usually multiple people answer. So there's a good community of support that can help you for either things we've talked about in class or also something that you want to try that we haven't yet discussed in class.
I have a random question that's not related to this. I'm trying to figure out how to make a line, like a custom line that has like maybe like dashes with question marks for like my most questionable fault line. Is that something that's easy to do, to have question marks on a line? Or
So you can control the symbology, as you've probably already figured out. I don't know how to do the question marks. That would be something I would recommend searching online.
yeah, I've been looking, but it's confusing. So just wasn't sure if that was an easy thing or not.
For the mapping homework, Rich, would it be okay if they used either a different color or different, for example, line width for their least certain feature?
Yeah, certainly. As long as it's clear in the legend, you know, that's okay. It's just a symbology issue, but as long as you just describe what that line type is. But it would be nice to find a nice tool for that too.
I know it might be a bit tedious, but when we were talking about adding text to the map, we won't have to maybe do it on the entire line, but maybe a couple control points that we could add a question mark next to it until we find out like how to actually do it.
So I know that with ArcGIS and Illustrator and a bunch of other softwares that there is PostScript files that you can download from the USGS that have all of these symbologies. Can you not use those same packets and put them into QGIS?
I don't know. I can check.
I would imagine you can, because I mean, I have all these downloaded for ArcGIS, and everything I've been doing has been in Arc, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't have some kind of bridge to put them into QGIS.
Yes, I agree. I just can't give right now exact suggestions for how to do it.
CJ, were you talking specifically for your fault shapefile, like adding, like showing like a questionable area?
No, just like having ranks for my fault lines. So like I basically had like a lowest, just like a fault that I wasn't sure if it was even a fault, but I wanted to put a line there just because there was something that led me to think that maybe there may be a fault there, some kind of geomorphic chain, like potential scarp or something, and I just wasn't sure, so I wanted a line that was my least confident line, I guess. So
if you go to your properties on your go into your layer property, and under like, do you have different did you categorize your files, or did you categorize your layers? Because if you categorized your layers, if you go to your the actual symbol for each layer, it just highlights favorite, which gives you a little bit, but you could go to all and it gives you a lot more options. Like I'm using dashed, dotted, and straight, and those in the same color, but you have to go outside of the favorite option. Do you want me to show you how to do that really fast?
If you want to show, John, go ahead.
Okay.
So I already did figure that out. When you're looking at that specific line and then you click, I have it just as a simple line. When I click simple line, it brings up another window that has a use custom dash pattern. And when you click on that, it opens up another menu where you can actually like program how it's like, you can program your own custom line, but I just couldn't figure out how to do it.
Oh, I think that might be similar to what Joe was talking about, where you can add on. But I think I was messing with that last night. Here, I'll just post what I have. So, can you guys see? Is it on my first screen? I can't see.
You can see QGIS, and you've got 2 mapped lines.
Okay.
Yep, see a map.
So for mine, whenever I went to the different properties, and for the similar to what Rachel was talking about earlier, you can add labels to your points, which that's what I'm doing for my grab-ins, but those are different. Attributes. Oh yeah, that's where it was. So this is like, normally this is what the only options that we were given, right? But this right here is where I went to all symbols and I used the topo foot for my concealed. And I just labeled it as such. And then whenever I go to my legend, I'll just have it labeled as concealed. But I think if you go to advanced, or if you go, like what I want to look up is how to add what Joe was talking about, specific symbols, but I'm not sure if we can do that. But this is the only thing that I know how to do. And I was going to explain that through the legend, if that helps at all.
So I think that's good. I'll look up to see how we can get more conventional geologic symbols into QGIS.
Because currently, aren't we just limited to what symbols that they have? And so we'll have to base it off of the legend. But outside of that, we should be able to do what ArcMap can do.
Yes. So I'll look. I'll email the whole class with what I find. It's a good question.
Able to add a database of symbols like from the USGS. I know that's what our cartography group does with our geologic maps. They just add it into ArcGIS, and so I can inquire where they download that from, and whether that can be imported into QGIS. You know, we'll try to figure it out, but I'm sure it exists.
Yes.
Well, I'm on the link right now. I have all of them. I have all the files downloaded already on the hard drive, so I could share those. It's just a question of whether or not they can be imported into QGIS.
Sure, if you want to send them, Joe, go ahead. Or if you want to send the link where you downloaded them.
Sure, absolutely. Can I send them to you and you can distribute them as needed?
Sure, yes. All right, are there any final questions? Our class is coming to an end. All right, good. So the homework is due tomorrow. And also send me tomorrow evening your 3 top picks of areas where you would like to do the mapping. And we'll see you on Thursday then.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Bye.
See you guys later.